Hello, this is Meredith from the Office of Leadership and Engagement. This is the training for clubs, organizations, and chapters to learn about hazing policies and consequences at Northern Arizona University. First, we will start with the definition of hazing. Hazing is any action or situation with or without the consent of the participants, which recklessly, intentionally, or unintentionally endangers the mental, physical, or academic health or safety of a student. Importantly, it can happen on or off campus, be initiated by just one person alone or by a group of people, and it is typically for the purpose of being initiated into, holding office in, or maintaining membership in any organization. That was a long definition, so we're going to go ahead and break down the key elements now. First, with or without the consent of participants. This means that signed consent forms do not protect any organizations from hazing allegations or successful conduct proceedings. This is because the power dynamics can pressure students into both consenting and participating in the hazing activities. Next, intentionally or unintentionally. What we mean by this is, unfortunately, an activity with the intention to be fun can still be hazing. What defines hazing is the impact of the pressure put on by individual members. When does hazing occur? This is when power and control are misused. It's important to remember that new members inherently have less power than active or established members, and therefore differentiating these groups is more likely to be considered hazing. New members may be unsure of their place, want to fit in, or don't want to be disliked by a group, so they're more likely to say yes to various activities that may be hazing. Why does hazing happen? Typically, hazing activities are presented as traditions, which allow them to maintain longevity in organizations. Another reason could be simply the desire to exert power onto newer, more vulnerable members. It can also be presented as a test to members' commitment to the group. Finally, it might just be a misguided team building or group development activity. Know what to look for. More severe hazing is likely to occur in situations with strongly collaborative groups, situations in which automatic benefits were received following hazing, and in groups with higher levels of coerciveness. Before we continue, I want to share with you that the goal of this presentation is to inform and help student organizations to identify hazing activities, to understand the legal and conduct ramifications of student organizations, and how to stop or replace hazing activities, not to scare students. In 2022, Arizona passed an anti-hazing law, which is a bill that makes hazing criminal activity to protect students from mental, emotional, and physical harm or abuse. It is also called Jack's Law, in honor of a student at ASU named Jack Clelias that died from excessive alcohol consumption while pledging to a fraternity all the way back in November 2012. This law makes hazing a Class 1 misdemeanor. This type of crime can be punishable up to 6 months in jail and $2,500 in fines. For more information about this law, you can go to stophazing.org to view the policy yourself. This next slide is to offer transparency to students about the investigation procedures. Now that hazing is a state law, a hazing investigation conducted by the university can result in an additional investigation with either the NAU or Flagstaff Police Department. We know that students understand the importance of safe drinking behaviors and that there are plenty of resources on campus to help them do so. However, there are additional risks associated with hazing and alcohol. These facts are taken from the U.S. Center for Bystander Intervention. In a study they did on hazing, they found that 71% of student witnesses saw drinking rituals involved in hazing. More than 50% of witnesses to hazing identified binge drinking, drinking games, underage drinking, using other substances with alcohol, vomiting, and blackouts as part of hazing. And finally, and perhaps the most important part,
82% of deaths from hazing involve alcohol. If hazing results in a person's death, it upgrades from a misdemeanor to a Class 4 felony. A first offense can result in 1 to 4 years of prison time.
Despite typical connotations, hazing does not just occur in Greek life. Hazing can occur in any student organization. From the research study mentioned previously, it reveals that varsity athletics, sports clubs, intramural teams, cultural organizations, recreational clubs, service organizations, performing arts organizations, military groups, student governments, religious or faith-based groups, honor societies, and academic clubs are not immune to hazing. The next thing I want to share with you is 3 examples that can highlight the different situations in which hazing can occur. On the far left, you'll see a photo of Sergeant Logan Melger. He was a U.S. Navy SEAL, and in 2017, his SEAL mates decided one day to have a little fun and scare him, restrain him a little bit, and then they administered a chokehold, which ended his life. The next example I want to give is from Northwestern University. They're a private university in Illinois, and it was covered on many news outlets that there was physical, sexual, and emotional harm, including dehumanizing acts done to the students and the football team. The hazing was so bad that the coach was dismissed from his position. And finally, on the far right is a picture of Robert Champion from Florida A&M University. He was a member of the marching band, and it was decided that he would be the next participant in crossing Bus C. This is an event that their team put on every year, and it involved new initiates starting at the front of the bus and crossing all the way and touching the back wall of the bus while persevering through the rest of the team physically assaulting them. Back in 2011, Robert did not ever touch the back of that bus. Those unfortunate real-life examples that I just shared would fall under the category of violent hazing, which has the potential to cause physical, emotional, or psychological harm. This type of hazing is usually the easiest to identify. It includes things like assault, paddling in any form, beating, burning, or branding, sexual violations, physical or psychological shocks. An example of this would be requiring members to be drenched in cold water, or tests of endurance. An example of this would be testing how late someone can stay up, how much they can drink, how much weight they can hold, anything like that. Additionally, these would include the forced ingestion of any liquid or substance, including alcohol, or advancing or promoting alcohol or substance use. Importantly, if an active or established member places an alcoholic beverage in a new member's hand and tells them that they do not need to drink, that would still be considered hazing, because even though they're saying you don't need to drink, you're still promoting the usage of alcohol. 2 other forms of hazing might be harder to distinguish. So first, there's harassment hazing, which causes emotional anguish or physical discomfort. Next, there is subtle hazing, which can seem harmless, but it emphasizes the power imbalances within groups, and it breaches the possibility of a safe organization for all members. Harassment hazing and subtle hazing confuses, frustrates, and causes undue stress for new members or rookies. Some examples of that include verbal abuse, name calling, pressured questioning, and late work sessions or workouts that interfere with scholastic activities. While required study times are common and used to encourage academic success in student organizations, the inability to leave and the lack of sleep could impact schoolwork and be considered hazing. Next, there are several ways that hazing can include new or future members. You can add on additional requirements for these groups of people. which can include running errands or doing personal service, wearing specific costumes, outfits, and/or hairstyles like head shaving. They can partake in embarrassing events, or they can be required to use formal methods of address for current members. If they're not adding something, you could also be taking away something from new or future members. You could be ignoring new members or reducing their privileges. And finally, you could just be trying to instill fear during initiations or events in these new or future members, which would be considered hazing. Please note that NAU does not tolerate any form of hazing, violent, harassment, or subtle. We addressed some common misunderstandings of hazing earlier, but we'll cover a few more now. As mentioned previously, individuals cannot consent to hazing activities. We want to remind you that consent is not a defense. Next, there are a few misunderstandings of the positives that hazing can do. In reality, hazing does not foster trust, unity, or respect. It does not effectively weed out members with low interest or motivation, and it does not encourage self-discipline. The true impacts of hazing is that it decreases connection among members, it hinders academic achievement, and it can be associated with physical pain, emotional duress, and can lead to premature death. Regarding the language used in the Arizona law, you can use these two statements to further distinguish whether or not your activity or event could be considered hazing. 1, it includes the submission of prospective, new, or current members to potentially dangerous or hazardous circumstances or activities, which have a foreseeable potential for resulting in injury. Or 2, any activity that may have a potential to cause distress, panic, human degradation, or embarrassment. For a note, if the activity includes physical exhaustion, physical contact, consumption of drugs or other substances, it could be considered hazing. If you're unsure if it's considered hazing, here are a few questions to ask yourself. As a participant, you can ask, would I feel comfortable participating in this activity if my parents were watching? Am I being asked to keep these activities a secret? Does participation in this activity violate my personal values or those of this organization? Am I doing anything illegal? Would I feel comfortable asking others to participate? However, if you're a coordinator, you're a club leader rather than just a member, you can ask yourself, would we get in trouble if a school or college administrator walked by and saw us? Am I separating the organization based on length of membership, and is that a necessary distinction? Would I be uncomfortable if I participated? And then finally, am I going to be able to get a job if I have to put a criminal arrest on my application? We're coming close to the end of the training now, and if you leave with anything today, I want you to leave with the idea that hazing can be stopped. It only takes one person to break the tradition of hazing, and it just requires courage and integrity from students to make the right decision. Now that we mentioned all of the ways that you shouldn't hold an event that could be considered hazing, I wanted to leave you with a few ideas of ways to bond without hazing. Some examples can include personality tests, group trips, small group competitions, community service, holding a talent show, and maybe even facilitating small interviews for the history and values of your group. You would be partaking in group bonding activities that do not hold the higher risks associated with hazing. Additionally, they foster authentic connection and explore individual differences. They're also allowing your group to be transparent about cultural rites and rituals. And finally, they provide options for choice and respect for members. If you don't like any of these examples, you can also go to hazingpreventionnetwork.org for more training or alternative ideas. If you are a victim of hazing or you know someone who might be a victim of hazing, there are many ways to get help filing a report. We recommend that you report instances both from within your organization and outside of your organization. If anyone is ever in immediate danger, call 911. We also included the NAU Police Department phone number on here in case that's helpful. We accept anonymous and identified reports, which can be completed at nau.edu/reportit. If you'd like to get someone on the phone in either the Office of the Dean of Students, Fraternity and Sorority Life Coordinators, or Leadership and Engagement, you can call that number on the right-hand side. We've also included their email addresses in case you'd like to get in touch with someone after the event. That brings us to the conclusion of our training. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to studentorgs@nau.edu, and you'll be able to schedule a meeting with staff from the Office of Leadership and Engagement. We want to help organizations make the best decisions for themselves and their club or chapter. If you ever have any questions about whether an activity or an event that you are planning counts as hazing, we encourage you to reach out to our office and get that support you need.